what do you need to be able to live stream? Luckily today I'm going to show you exactly what you need, because it's very important at the moment to be able to live stream with good quality. We want good audio, we got good video, and everything needs to go together easily. So there's a few ways you can do this, and I'm going to show you the main way that gets you really good quality. There's a couple of budgets that you can keep in mind, so the price of this will be interesting. What we'll do is we'll first look at the one and only camera, and then we'll slowly move into gear and start looking at what the options are. I'm going to give you the main information about the camera, because when it comes to the camera, there are a few things you want to keep in mind. Firstly, the camera needs to be able to live stream, and the two cameras I'm going to talk about now will allow you to live stream with a bit of help. What I mean by that is the camera itself, you to use HDMI. So the main key here is just there, it says HDMI out, and that's what we're interested in. So if your camera has a HDMI out, you're on to a good start. So you're already in the sense ready for it. However, some of the older cameras will have a HDMI lead, which lets you play back the video and the photos you've taken, but it might not give you what I've got here, which is a live feed. So that's something to think about. Firstly, the camera we're going to look at is going to be one of my favorites. If you watched any of the videos, any of the live streams, you'll know about 6 months ago now, 5 months ago, I upgrade. It's not really an upgrade. It's not the latest, greatest camera, but it's a good camera for the price and the budget. So if I've got a budget of say under $700, $800, all day long, I'll be happy with this camera, because it live streams, takes video, takes photo, and it comes with the lens. What else can you ask for? It's a great point to start with, and you'll get nice, well, you'll get exactly what I've got here with an addition of a cheap lens, because I have taken the lens off the camera, which is this one here that comes with it. So first up, I'm going to say the camera. If you want a quick setup, get a 250D, also known as the SL3 in America, North America. So that's your camera. If you want something a bit more professional, hang about, I'm going to show you another camera option as well, which is a full frame camera, and I'll explain what the differences are. Why do you need to worry about a crop sensor? This is basically half the size of a full frame camera in terms of sensor size. That's a bit of information. I want to keep it light. I don't want to give you too many specs that make you think, wait a minute, what's this guy talking about? So let's look at the lens in more detail. So when talking about lenses, I'm referring to the lens that you get with the camera, which would be called a kit lens. So this is referred to as a kit lens because you're getting it in the camera deal with the camera. Is that kit lens good? Questionable. Is it bad? Not really. It's a good middle of the ground. It'll do everything okay. So right about now, if you're thinking about live streaming with like a decent exposure, a nice blurry background, you distinguished with depth of field, also known as bokeh, all sorts of words they call that. That's not really that blurred out behind me at the moment. It could be better, and it used to be better, but I changed the lens, and I'll keep going on about it. But that lens there, Yongnuo 35mm f2, is it the best lens in the world? Not really. We'll get onto that, so hang about, you'll see that. Now this lens is the one you get with the camera. I have purposely removed this lens from the camera and put a separate lens on. As soon as you add a different lens, you're basically gonna get better quality if the lens is better than the kit lens. So right now, this kit lens on its own would cost about $140. So considering you're getting this lens with the camera, it's quite a nice deal, because you're paying what kind of, let me check the price on the camera. You're looking at a camera would be about $750-ish. So take off $140, you're left with what, 600? Kind of, 750, yeah. So 600 for the camera. So for a camera itself, would it be better to buy a camera on its own and buy a separate lens? That's where you're going to get a bit more thrifty. So if you're looking to save money, that might be a good way of looking at it. So you don't really use that lens. But I purposely got that lens because originally when I started photography, I started with this lens. And that got me started, and I was like, you sometimes need a, not bad, but like a not excellent lens to be able to tell it's not that good. If you start straight away with really good quality camera, you'll be like, you'll expect everything to be that good, but that's not the case. So in there, you'll see there's a number of details. Canon zoom lens, What does that mean? That means it's a zooming lens. Is that important? Yes, it is, because not all lenses zoom. Some have one fixed focal length, so that means it's a prime lens, so it doesn't zoom. So you can't change the focal length. This one is a zoom lens, which is good because you can do wide shots, you can do focused, zoomed in photos, videos. And then we've got the EFS, which stands for the Canon mounting system. This will fit on an EFS camera, such as the Canon 250D, the T8i, the T7, all that range of cameras are the crop sensor cameras. Next up, there's two numbers. So we notice that it's a Canon zoom lens. 18 to 55 is referring to the focal length. So because we said it's zoom, there's two numbers there, because you can go anywhere between 18 and 55 millimeters. What does that even mean? So right now, this is 35 millimeters, which means you can see me push my hands out. 50 would be something like that. So you don't see everything out there. You only see like that kind of style. So with this one lens, I could get a wide shot. And then if I wanted to do a closer tight in one, I'll just zoom in. And it let me zoom in to get a tighter shot. So in that example, it's good. But then what's the opposite of that? Because you've got a zoom lens and it's a cheaper lens, where you're going to not hinder, but where you're going to kind of get a bit of a offspring is the 3.5 to 5.6 refers to the aperture of the lens. There's a whole series of videos I've done about learning photography and the basics, but the gist of it is those numbers mean in darker environments, you're not going to be able to get as good photos, like a layman's explanation. If that number on the start is 3.5, my background will be a bit sharper than what it is now. So this lens is 3.5. You'll notice the lens I'm currently playing about with is f2 and it's 35 millimeters. So it being f2 means that firstly, I can set it at f2 on the camera, so it stays at f2 all the time. I get a really big light, shine it on myself, and then I focus myself to the camera to be able to live stream. We're still talking about lenses right now. So this is mainly saying if you've got the right lens, you can fit everything else around your lens to make it look nice. I can shoot at lower settings. Lower ISO means the picture looks a lot nicer, less grainy. If you've seen some video or live streams that is very grainy, is one of two reasons. So you'll see that this would be 3.5. If I put this onto the camera as it is now, like a straight swap, it'll basically get dark because this camera cannot go down to that level of light entry that the current lens is allowing me, which then means I have to compensate with more light, but then it'll be a bit sharper because the numbers are different. So in this example, there's a few things to think about when looking at lenses, but ideally, if you can get a lower aperture lens, something I use a lot is the 50mm 1.4. That works very nicely because it gives you a blurry background, basically. And it's not that expensive, it's like $400 to $500 range. So that would be a good lens to get as a starter. The only issue there is 50mm. So you have to put your camera further away because it's going to be obviously zoomed in. So that's lenses. Next up, let's look at some of the things that allow you to make your camera live. So we've spoken about the camera, we've covered the lens, we looked a bit more into the lens information as well. Now, what makes the camera allowed to live stream? This is where it gets tricky. I've made a full video about how to use a HDMI capture card with a camera and how to plug it in. So it would be definitely worth checking that out. However, the main thing here is we're using a capture card. So what I mean by this is it's a capture card that basically captures video via a source being a lead connection from your camera into a cable, which then goes into this like a fancy adapter. All it does is makes a HDMI into a USB. The USB gets plugged into your laptop or your computer, PC, and it translates the video feed from the camera into a video source which you can use in your computer. There's a whole new section about software that you need for live streaming. You can use OBS, Open Broadcast Software, which basically lets you live stream to different platforms. You can use it in Zoom, pretty much everything. You can use it for gaming videos, all sorts of stuff. But you're essentially going to need a good HDMI capture card. There's a couple on the market out there. Why should you spend $120-ish, $30 on a capture card like this? Because I've used the cheap ones for a long amount of time and I've run into a few problems with the cheaper ones. Things like bugging out, live stream crashing, and I've been testing them recently where I've been putting them on certain cameras, and the cameras I've tested the other cards on were glitchy. And slowly I've got around the fact of glitchiness, and now I can narrow down after a lot of testing. This will happen. This is troubleshooting. If you're going to set up a live streaming camera, so if you get the camera, you plug in a cable goes into the capture card goes into the computer, and then you live stream. It doesn't have to be perfect. Test live stream for at least an hour, and within that hour, when your camera warms up, you might see some little things going on, little green bars, blanking out, quality of the footage, lighting, all these things. Just note down what's going on, and then you start investigating. If something goes wrong, change your HDMI cable. Sometimes I've known HDMI cables to be inferior quality, and just changing out a cable sorts it out. If it's not the cable, check your adapter, because remember, your camera has a mini HDMI and you're going to be putting in a full-sized HDMI, which means you need a mini HDMI to full HDMI converter. So there could be that cable connector. So check that, check the HDMI cable. When you're plugging it into your computer, check the settings you're recording in. Is it in 4K? Is it in 1080p? Are you making it MP4? Are you streaming straight into your computer and recording it? There's various things, but that's like a troubleshooting overview. If your camera's overheating, you're probably in a warmer climate. I've never had overheating issues. I've live streamed for 3 or 4 hours sometimes, and I've not had issues with live streaming, overheating. So that's a little look at the capture card that you will need, and a bit more information that you need to know really. But I want to give you more information than you need to, because if you're looking for a card, at least you've got the idea of how it works and what you need to do with it. So we've looked at the camera, we looked at lenses, we looked at the capture card and the various types. I've done a video comparing 3 different capture cards: ultra cheap, mid price, and then the good one. So check that out as well. Let's look at the additional things, which will be like my little beauty here. This is a mini USB wireless Bluetooth keyboard. What it allows you to do is you can connect it to your computer via like a wireless mic, think along those lines, wireless mouse. And you've got the option here to use keys which allow you to switch between cameras. Why is that good? Well, let me show you. For example, if I was to go over to my standing desk, I've just turned my standing desk section on, and I'm going to show you exactly how this would work. So what I've basically done here is I've used this to go from my first setup to my standing setup. So that allows you to do this kind of thing basically using that while live streaming. So that's quite handy. And then you can just come right back here. So that helps you use it in various ways. It's simply amazing. It's like a bit of a, not a hack, but it's something nice to be able to do on the fly. The alternative to this would be something like the ATM Mini Pro. You're looking at $450, but that's like actual buttons, and then you get a separate app. So there's a few ways of doing it, but that's one way that I like to do it, and I want to share that. So if you're live streaming and you want multiple cameras, multiple setups, then it's quite nice. Something that's going to be important is microphones. You won't think about it, but when you're live streaming, you might want to set up your camera far away and you want audio like this. I like my audio very close because it makes it sound nice. There are other ways of doing this. If you don't want this arm in shot, which sometimes gets in the way, I'll be honest. I'm used to it now, but it's like actually having like a full arm there. It's like extra. But you can have a shotgun mic, but then that's going to be further away out of a shot and it's pointing down to your chest. But I do like my mics, and these mics do very well because I do podcasting, recording of videos, or voiceovers, all of the stuff for different channels as well. So it helps to have like a mic with a mixing board. So I've got a bit more of an advanced setup, I'll say. Is it Pro? It's a Yamaha mixing board and a fancy mic, basically XLR powered, and it goes straight into the mixing board, which then goes into the computer. So it could even be classed as Pro when you set it up. And you can even do funny things with like voice additions like "Hello, how are you today?" just by a click of a button. So it's like intense. If you're doing any gaming and that, you can do live streaming gaming. You can just add in the effects in there and just change your voice. Hello, and thanks for joining me on the show today. and there's like loads of little things you can do. Microphones is a big one. You don't have to get really fancy ones. You can go down the route of like a shotgun boya mic on top of your camera, which is there and then pointing towards you. It will pick up a bit more ambient noise, but it depends how important audio is to what you're making. So that depends really on the grand scheme of things. So microphones, definitely think about them. You don't have to spend loads of money. You're looking at like $59 for a mic and some cables. The mixer is where the money comes in. This is an XLR mic. So you get XLR lead, which goes into either a mixing board or an interface. That's something to think about. And then that goes into your computer. I did a video about mixing board versus interface and the differences, so you can check that out. But overall, mics, I think is quite important. You want decent quality video. If anything, if your video is not excellent, if you got good audio, it makes a massive difference because people tend to listen with earphones in. Mine's could probably be better audio. Let me know. That is microphones. Next, we can start looking at lights, and that's a whole new kettle of fish. So as you mentioned, lights can be very important in live streaming. Firstly, I'm showing you like a budget option. This is quite small, but it's quite powerful. But the rule here is you don't want it to be harsh light. So you'll see that there. It's quite like intense. Wow. But you need to use it sparingly, and ideally you want a big source of light. The bigger the source of light is going to be, the more flattering and nice it's going to be. But yeah, so some of these small lights can be very interesting. Rather than not have a light, they're okay. Because if I had one on this corner of the monitor, one in that corner, and if I'm sitting down, it'll actually do okay. But I'm also lighting my desk as well, so it depends what you're doing. Also, LED lighting panels will work quite well. Something like fairy lights can work wonders. You'll be surprised how nice they can look when they're in the background. So let me quickly show you like a cheap option. These aren't that expensive. You can get them for like $9, $8, something along those lines. But they make nice background interest. Let me put some batteries in here and let's put this on and test it out. So right there, you can see just about a little bit of Christmassy effect going on. It's not too intense, but it's enough to make it look nice. So you'll see if you go for one color, it might be better than my multicolored one. But look at that. It's like a bit of a blurriness in the background, and you put it in a darker place, it looks even better. So what I have done is I've just moved them here because this is a bit darker behind my monitor, and you can see a few of the lights and how they glisten almost. My big light off, and let's have a look at it then, shall we? That makes it look a bit more interesting. So now let's use a small light. See the difference here now? So this small light is kind of very harsh and like throwing shadows. However, if I put it here, that's one light. Let's go with the two light. Some might argue that looks better, and that in essence is two cheap lights. It looks more, not moody, but like nice and ambient. But you'll see there's loads of shadows now. So if I do like that, see that shadow? And ideally shadows are not good, but I do like the feel of this. It's more like cozy kind of. So now I've put the big light back on, and the bigger the light source, the more diffused it is. This looks like it feels like, or it would look like it's naturally, this is how it's lit, but without seeing the light you would not know that. And then also my desk's a lot brighter, so using smaller lights can be good. They work well in many scenarios, but if you want like a nice pro look or something that you can't tell is lit well, this does very well. So lighting is very important. There's additional little things that you wouldn't think about, but things like little Type-C to USB-A adapters are quite handy, because if you've got any lights that are powered via Type-C, you can actually use the adapters to plug in and then charge it. So they're quite handy to have. These are little extra bonus things that you would need to have. You'll see all of these things in the information section, the description section, with links, so you can actually click on them and it opens up in another window. But there's cables, there's leads, you'll get HDMI cables. All those things are essential, but keep an eye on these small things that you don't think about, because if you've got cables, you might be able to get an adapter to use an existing cable. So you want to save you having to buy a new cable and just, you know, keep it green and killing the planet with all the postage and the fuel charges and all the pollution. So if you've got little things like this and you can use an existing cable, it saves you having to buy a new cable, which is a good thing. So keep an eye on that as well. We'll look at a few more things in terms of storage and lighting, but overall that was the main information about live streaming That's a quick overview of live streaming and the gear you need. You'll be pleased to know if you go over onto Google and search Zulf photography, you can actually find the website where you can get a free course. So you click join free, you basically swipe, put your name and your email address in here, and as you swipe up, you'll see what you can get here. It's basically a free course, free overlays for live streaming. As soon as you put your name and email, you get an email sent out to your inbox. So click on show pictures, scroll up and it'll say, hello, thanks for joining. It's not going to be spam. It's basically just me giving you information about frequently asked questions, live streaming, and also a free photography course. So when you go into that, you'll get a link. You can play all these videos. They're free to view, and you can actually get information about cameras, photography, setting them up in the right way. I'm always updating it, so you'll get the latest information by clicking play. So that'll give you that information. And there's another video here that you can click and see you on that next video.